Hello, welcome back to the Restoring Balance podcast. I'm your host, Megan Garza, and I'm going to be talking about acne and confidence. So, if you've ever dealt with acne, I'm sure that you will be able to relate to a lot of what I'm saying because confidence is something that's really impacted when you do have any kind of skin issue, whether that be psoriasis, eczema, acne, whatever it is. You know what I'm talking about. I'm going to dive into the confidence aspect of that, but I just want to give a little bit of a backstory to give more of an understanding. So I developed acne at around 13, and that's very common for a lot of kids going through puberty and just dealing with all the hormones and of course crummy diets in Western countries. And my skin was just really dry and inflamed, and it was just so splotchy, and I had a lot of pimples, and I didn't really notice it at the time because I had a lot of other health problems going on at the time. So that was just a symptom that arose from that. But I look back at pictures and I'm like, wow, my skin really was really irritated. And a couple years after that, I think I was around 15, the doctor put me on birth control pills and antibiotics. And of course it worked when I was on it, but if you know anything about long-term use of these medications, they cause more problems than they help. So I was on these for a little over 3 years, and that's not something that you want to take for that prolonged period. And I know that I definitely suffered ill effects from all of that. But when I was off of all the medications, my acne didn't really flare up real bad. I would get a pimple here and there, but my skin was pretty clear. But as time went on, I noticed that it was starting to get a little more red and irritated, but nothing too terrible. Later on, I did have to take antibiotics again because I got into an accident, and the stress from that was just so insane. Like, it was just such a stressful event and period of time in my life. And I also had to take pain medicine for a brief period of time. And that really, I'm sure, affected my gut health as well. I was off the antibiotics because, it was just for a possible infection that could have happened from the accident. But I noticed my skin started to decline quicker after this. So then several months later after that accident happened, my now husband was diagnosed with stage 2 kidney cancer, and it just absolutely devastated me. I just thought he was going to die. I didn't know much about this condition. I didn't know what the doctors were going to do, and I was just so scared. We weren't dating at the time, but I knew I loved him, and I was like, oh my God, I don't want to lose him. So just the surgery that he had to go through and being post-op and being in the ICU is just so sad, because I saw someone going from being really strong to in this state. And, then I had to be his caregiver. And, that was really tough, but, it is what it is. And I'm glad I was able to do it. But at this point, I was off all medications like antidepressants, birth control pills, antibiotics, ADD medicine, like everything. And my body at this point was just put through the ringer. I mean, I was dealing with fatigue, joint pain, memory problems, acne, sleeping problems, severe gut issues, hormone imbalances, you name it. Like, I was a mess, and I always felt like crap. And I was 18 at this point, and I was just like, oh my God, like, I don't want to live my life like this. And it was so scary to be dealing with these. And a lot of people thought that I was just making shit up. And, I feel like that was really hurtful because, when you're dealing with something and no one gives you any kind of validation, it's very hard because people make you seem like you're crazy, and then you start thinking that you're crazy. But I mean, I didn't feel good most of the time. I was so tired, and I mean, definitely on my way to developing some kind of autoimmune disease. I mean, it was bad. And I knew that I didn't want to take any more pills for it. So I wanted to figure out what was going on. And I don't know. I feel like I was kind of desperate at this point because when I was 19, I went to the doctor to see if he had any kind of answers for me. And he was like, oh, yeah, you can go on Accutane. It's really safe. My daughters took it. And I kind of considered it for a brief moment until I started researching it. And it's high dosage of synthetic vitamin A, and that's extremely dangerous for you. It was originally a chemotherapy drug, and it can cause anything from permanent dry eyes, permanent joint pain, liver damage. And the scary thing about this is it was actually taken off the market and renamed something because it caused so many issues with women and men that took it. The guy who produced this drug, he actually lost 9 out of 13 lawsuits. So that's a big number. And that was something that I was like, wow. So this guy's actually had lawsuits and he lost a big majority of them. So big red flag. And also, your acne will probably come back after you're done taking this. That's what I hear from a lot of people, is that their acne came back. So all these medications, they don't really address what's going on in your body. It's just like, oh, here's a Band-Aid approach to it. Let's not dive deeper into it and, actually figure it out. But for about a year, I thought that it was just a skin issue, and I didn't really realize that it was what was going on inside. So once I started figuring that out, I started going to GI doctors, and I think they ran a test and they were like, oh yeah, we can't find anything wrong with you. And I think I spent like a ton of money on the test as well. So after that, I was like, whatever, I'm just going to figure this out on my own, because the body has tremendous abilities to heal. And I also didn't want to spend a shit ton of money on a bunch of drugs that the doctor was just going to give me. So I was like, okay, I got this. I'll figure it out. And I wanted to heal from within and not rely on any drugs or creams to have really nice glowing skin. But during this time of healing and trying to figure out what was wrong with my body, I became very reclusive. And I'm naturally an introvert, but I didn't want people to look at me. I stopped going places. I was even embarrassed to be around my family because I thought that, they were judging me or staring at my acne. And sometimes I would just hide under my makeup because I thought that would bring me an extra level of security. I even had a lot of people telling me like, oh, just go to the doctor and they'll give you Accutane. And I'm like, yeah, I know that. Don't give me advice because I don't want that crap. And, it's just symptom suppression. It doesn't really get to the root cause of what's going on. And, a couple doctors even told me like, oh, well, just use this face cream and it'll be fine. And they just belittled me, and I was just so over it. And the makeup was just something that I felt would help, but it ended up just making me a lot more depressed. So eventually I just stopped wearing it. I've always hated makeup. I just felt like I had to wear it because, that's what women do. We wear makeup to look pretty and blah, blah, blah. And I never really wore it for myself, but eventually I just stopped wearing it one day. And, it was not something that was like, oh my God, I'm so ugly, I'm not wearing makeup. But it was kind of more empowering than anything, because, I thought to myself, man, this feels really good to just be in my own skin and to love myself for who I am. Even if I was like super unconfident, I would still go out without makeup. And yeah, people do treat you differently when you have skin conditions. I didn't get a lot of smiles. People were rude. They would just treat me like I had like leprosy, and it was just unnecessary. It was very unnecessary the way that people look at you when you have skin conditions. It's very rude. But I pushed through because I didn't want to wear makeup. And, not only did I feel like it was a mask, I started realizing how toxic most makeup in drugs, or all makeup in drugstores, are. They have heavy metals, parabens, fragrance, and all kinds of other endocrine disruptors that just get into your bloodstream. So I didn't want to put all those toxins in my body because I wanted to really heal. So I just stopped wearing it. And, it was scary, but I kept doing it because I didn't like it. And also I realized that, people do like me for who I am, and it has nothing to do with my skin. So if they know me for me, and if they want to be around me, then that's great. I'm super happy about that. But if they didn't want to be around me because of my skin, then I don't need them in my life. If someone's going to judge me based on something superficial as a skin condition that clearly indicates that something is out of balance, then bye. So, anyways, I started learning about holistic health and just healing within without any kinds of drugs or topicals. I just got a face wash, which was honey, and I still use that today. I've never spent obscene amounts of money on skincare. I don't even think that I ever bought any skincare because I knew that that was just a mask for the problem, and it was kind of all bullshit. It doesn't solve the problem. It can help with what's going on, but if you need benzoyl peroxide and all of these other really harsh creams to keep your acne at bay, definitely reevaluate, because there's something that's not quite right still. You shouldn't need to rely on creams to keep your skin clear. And my skin was starting to improve slowly, so when I was 19, I went vegan, and this was just the absolute worst idea, because I'm sure all of, the lack of essential fatty acids and all kinds of other, nutrient deficiencies that are associated with this kind of diet threw my gut out of whack. And also it's extremely alkaline, and that's not good for your gut to be alkaline, because your digestion, your stomach is extremely acidic, and when you're putting all these alkaline foods in it, it'll really cause a lot of problems and cause you to be more susceptible to parasites and yeast overgrowth and all kinds of other issues. So at this point, when I was vegan, it was all over my face, my back, my chest, my arms, everywhere. I mean, it was so bad. It was so painful. I just wanted it gone. It was just frustrating, and it just always seemed to be on my mind. It seemed like nothing that I was doing was working. And, just laying down and going to sleep was painful because of how big the cysts were. I couldn't even sleep without feeling pain. Even though my skin condition was slowly improving, it was still inflamed, and it really made me feel like crap, because, it really was all that was on my mind. And, looking back, it probably really wasn't even that big of a deal, because most people didn't notice. If they did notice, they probably were not judging me or thinking that I was dirty. Majority of people probably know that there's more to it than just washing your face. I mean, I'm sure you'll get those ignorant people who comment things like that or tell you things like that, but for most people, it's, oh my God, I feel so bad for her. I wish that she would find some relief. Because I know that when I look at people that have health problems, the first thing that pops into my mind is, I really wish that they could find a solution to this. And whenever I would talk to people, that would be, what they would say to me, that it's not out of judgment. It's just, they would look because, they think it's painful. And it progressed over the years, and my body was just so inflamed. I really did think that diet was the key complaint, but after a while, I realized that nourishment does come from other places, and nourishment is not just your food. There's so much more to it than that, and, it was getting better, but I still couldn't really figure out what was going on. I knew that my gut was out of whack, and I did everything in my power to heal it, but I just couldn't get it under control. I just didn't understand. And I started eating more meat around this time when I was like 20 or 21, somewhere around there. And, I started to kind of feel better, but I was still like, I don't really want to do that. I don't really want to eat meat because I'm vegan and blah, blah, blah. But, the more meat that I ate, the better I felt. So clearly I was just being lied to by a bunch of propaganda to tell me to eat a certain way, which, isn't necessary. It's not helpful for many, many people. And yeah, I wanted to figure it out. So in the beginning of 2020, I really changed my perspective on eating animals. I even went to a farm and helped process some animals. And, that was a really cool experience, but that's another story for another day. But it really did help me with my mindset of, this food is healing, and it's, it's nothing bad or evil. It's just part of life. And I reached out to someone in my neighborhood about her selling raw goat milk. And when I drank that, it was just like my body just needed it. Like I wanted to drink the entire half gallon right then and there because it was just so good. And like I can definitely tell that it helped because my digestion, like my stomach, stopped hurting after that. I mean, of course, it took a while, but within like 6 months, the extreme pains that I was having just completely went away. And I don't really have like stomach pains anymore, which is great because, you know, who wants stomach pains? But, you know, I do notice that people did treat me a lot differently when I had acne, and it really hurt my feelings a lot because, you know, I was very, I don't want to say naive about it, but I was just very like loving and caring, and like I just wanted to be friends with a lot of people. And, you know, just the looks that you would get were just hurtful. And, you know, whether or not they were judgmental of, ew, she's disgusting, or, oh my God, you know, I feel so bad for her, they were still looks and stares and, you know, not looking me in the eyes and looking at my face or at my skin instead of my eyes. And it was just like, you know, that's kind of hurtful. Like, you don't need to stare at my skin. Like, I know it's there. It sucks. But yeah, the confidence was just something that I had to kind of just force myself to do and to just, you know, jump in there and get it done. And just the fact that I was not wearing makeup and that I was going out places with, you know, my bare skin was just so empowering, and realizing that, you know, I am who I am and it doesn't define me if my skin has spots. But around 2021, in the very beginning of this year, I started really taking a different approach of actually taking my health seriously. So I started getting better quality sleep. I started managing my stress better, really actually resting. And I don't mean like sleep. I mean, when I'm in the middle of work, I actually take a break and I do deep breathing and I take care of myself, because rest is more than just, let me go sit down and read a book. Like, no, you need to really rest, especially if you're a woman. Definitely take care of yourself and rest, because our bodies are not meant to be under this amount of stress like they are. I started really wearing sunscreen every single day, and I'm not talking about like the chemical sunscreens with the oxybenzone and homosilstate. I don't know how to say the names, but I don't use any of those because they are endocrine disruptors. I use zinc oxide, and I noticed that the zinc is very healing to my skin. And I just figured out like what my skin type was. Like, it's very dry, and I use things that are extremely oily, and that seems to balance it out. I started drinking a lot of teas, like red raspberry tea. I was drinking green tea, peppermint tea, this one tea for like liver cleansing. So yeah, liver cleansing is very important, and just supporting your liver in all ways possible. And blood sugar. So blood sugar regulation is so important, and a lot of people overlook this one. And it's so simple. You know, you don't really have to do much except eat more frequently. Like, who wouldn't want to do that? Like, hell yeah, I'll eat more frequently, sure. And also just managing my stomach acid. So I'm taking apple cider vinegar right before my meals, and that just, it seems to be such a huge game changer. Like, it really does help. And I'm really happy that, you know, it's working, because stomach acid is something that you need in order to digest your food properly. I want to note that there's no one size fits all approach. So, you know, it's based on your health history and where you need support. So what I just mentioned might not be what you need for your acne treatment. And I also want to say that I do still have acne prone skin. And I think that everyone has certain issues or weak points, as you might want to call it, that are always going to just flare up throughout their life. So it's not about getting your skin to look perfect. It's just about making sure that the flare up and the symptoms are less severe, because that shows that your body is healing. So I still break out when I'm not mindful of my triggers, but the acne breakouts, they used to be around about an 8 with cysts and, you know, pustules and pimples all over my body. And now when I experience a breakout, you know, just because of stress or hormones or eating a lot of sugar, it's really mild, maybe about a 3 or a 4 if it's really bad. But for the most part, my skin's usually pretty clear. And just not striving for perfection is also another thing that you can really do for your confidence, because perfection is something that does not exist. And if it does exist to you, your idea of perfection is always going to change as you go through life. That's how it is. We go up and down through these cycles, and what we might think that we want at one point might be something different later. So you might think that, oh, well, once my skin has no more active pimples on it, then I'm going to be super happy about my skin. But once your skin's clear, you're probably going to have acne scars to some extent. And, then what? Like, are you going to hate yourself still? So it's just about really meeting yourself where you're at and not being critical and judgmental about what you're going through, because your body is obviously in a state of, it's needing some attention and support, and it's up to you that you give it that. And a way that you can really damage your body and your mind is by giving into those toxic negative thoughts, of, oh, I got to go pick my skin. I look so ugly. What's the matter with me? That's not going to do any good. Don't talk to yourself that way. Would you talk to your friends that way? I mean, I sure hope not. If you talk to your friends that way, I don't think I'd want to be your friend, but I'm sure you don't. I'm sure you're a very kind, loving person. And, just treating yourself that way, treating yourself the way that you want others to treat you, the way that you treat others. So really just letting up on yourself and not being so critical is also another really big part for confidence. So looking yourself in the eyes in the mirror and just saying all of these positive things to yourself about how worthy you are and how much you love yourself. And it doesn't matter if you have clear skin, because you're going to love yourself no matter what. And, I would say that I would be lying if I said that it did not still impact my confidence a little when it happens, because, who doesn't want clear skin? You feel healthier, you feel just better overall because, your skin's glowing, and that's your outer is a reflection of your inner. But, for the most part, I don't really care that much anymore. Like, I don't let it stop me from living my life. Like, for example, when I would go to the beach or paddleboarding, sometimes back when my acne was like really bad and I had a really negative mindset, I would just think all day like, oh my God, my acne looks terrible. It's going to flare up when I get home. It's going to, this is going to happen. That's going to happen. It was just that constant mental state of, your brain running and thinking of all these negative outcomes and thinking that everyone's looking at you. But that's not true. Most people, like I said, don't care. But just keeping a positive attitude towards it, knowing that it will get better, and it's also not the end of the world. Your body just needs some support, and you're going to give it that. I feel like it's more of a reason of aesthetics why people get upset about their acne. And I know that that was the case for me for a while, because I was like, ew, my skin looks disgusting. It's so ugly and blah, 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 blah. But I was really neglecting a bigger part of me of, where does my body need nourishment and support? And I was looking at my skin issue as too much of just a skin issue. Like, yeah, there's bumps on my face and on my back and on my chest, but they're not just bumps. It's my body telling me something deeper is wrong. And I need to honor that and respect that and not talk negative to myself. I feel that, the comments are really unnecessary, but just ignoring those people who make those comments, because chances are they've probably never dealt with acne or any of those kinds of skin conditions. Or maybe they're just projecting whatever they feel negative about themselves onto you. So don't take it seriously. Take it with a grain of salt. And sometimes people are just nasty. And that's just how it is. Just remembering that it does not define you as a person. And it really can't heal with the proper tools. It's not a death sentence. It's not something that you have to live with your entire life. And you can overcome it. Oftentimes, you're definitely your own worst enemy, and you're probably noticing it more than anyone else is. And yes, I will keep saying this because it's very true for the most part. Most people they don't really care. It's just acne. But if you are dealing with acne, please, please, please take it seriously. It's your body's way of communicating with you that something is out of balance. It's not just a skin condition. Maybe it's your blood sugar. Maybe your hormones are out of whack. Maybe you're not getting deep restorative sleep. Maybe your diet isn't what you need, or your skincare routine. There's a lot of different things that acne is telling you. So definitely take it seriously. And if it's something that you've been dealing with for a while and you cannot figure it out, please seek help, because it might not clear up on its own without proper guidance, because sometimes it's easy to overlook things that are really obvious to someone who has a trained eye in working with clients who are dealing with acne. And it's one of the many things that I help my clients resolve, because I know what works and I know how to get clear skin and to keep your skin clear sustainably and naturally. So don't give up, because you will find what works for you. And if you need help with addressing your acne, I am always here to help you. And just staying consistent and remembering that it takes time. Lots and lots of time. So be patient and don't expect change overnight. Well, that's all the time that we have for today. So if you have any questions or comments, my Instagram is Megan Garza Wellness. If you like the podcast, please let me know. Topic suggestions are always welcome, so feel free to send me a DM on my Instagram or a message through my website. Thanks for tuning into my podcast, Restoring Balance. Be sure to check back next Thursday for the next topic.